Um, so we're going to talk a little bit about introducing and integrating AI into the language learning classroom. I'm going to talk about it more from the perspective this time around onboarding your students with AI, kind of opening up the conversations with them, the things that we maybe want to talk about and understand, and how to possibly guide them through this process, because we do understand that this is still new for everybody. It's new for us at the same time as it's new for students. And so kind of having that understanding of, okay, we're doing this together, but we are still the leaders in the classroom. So how do we make that work? So the first thing that I like to do with my students is, opening up the conversation around AI. So I'm sure all of you have this experience on your own campuses or, over the last couple of years that there are a lot of teachers out there who are just not talking about things. They just say, well, if I just don't talk about it, then that'll be enough. Or if I just say don't use it, then that'll be enough. But that's not really a practical way to kind of understand the world that we're living in. And so the way that I kind of think about it is, I use this metaphor of driving through the fog, right? It's like we know that we have to get somewhere. We have a sense of where we want to go to. It's not exactly easy to see where we're trying to get to all the time, and we definitely could make mistakes if we're not careful about it. And so I actually, I'll say that directly to my students is like, this is uncharted territories. There are answers out there, but some of them will be right and some of them will be wrong. And so I like to keep that idea in mind because then I can bring that back every time I make a mistake with AI, which does happen in my classroom, right? Or something weird shows up or whatever else it is. And so it's kind of setting up the framework for the whole class for the students. So when we do this, of course, I think Kat mentioned quite a few of these in the how do we determine that? Is that a preamble? I guess the the opening remarks. Uh, we want to have these transparent, open conversations with our students. So, like, what are the problems with AI, right? And so, a number of these things we want to talk to them about. And again, we have to recognize, different levels of students' understanding. If you're in classes like mine, where we're fully working with language acquisition. So, oh, I'm a professor at a community college and I teach English as a second language very specifically, although I know many of you have second language learners inside of your classes, etc. And so in my setting, my students are just before ready to transfer into transfer level classes. So their English is pretty good for the most part. So a lot of these ideas they can understand. You might have to simplify or change depending on what you're talking about with your students and their understanding of these things. But I do like to clarify some of this information so that every time we bring these up, they're already aware. So we talk about things like what is the training data? Where does this information come from, right? So when students recognize that, oh, okay, a lot of this comes, the way that this is trained is on Reddit and, academic papers. Well, okay, that's great, but who's on Reddit and who's writing the academic papers that are getting put in there? And we really need to kind of understand what that means, right? Um, Environmental concerns, a lot of students these days are really interested in that. At my school, a lot of students actually push back on AI because of wasteful energy, right? And so being able to respond to that, think about what that means, understand it, make decisions around it. Definitely everybody here should be concerned about privacy and personal information. Whether their information is going to come up in future chats, whether that information, I think we just saw something today that they're saying, hey, you're not necessarily going to be able to delete all of your histories and, all these crazy things going on. So we have to really be careful about what we're putting in. And then ethical concerns actually inside the classroom can be part of these. So this is came up in the news recently. Some of you may have seen it. There was a college student. There's actually been a few. It says college student demanded her tuition back after catching her professor using Chat GPT, and went pretty hardcore into it, right? Where it's like, hey, the professor, it did the same mistakes that we see students making, right? And it says, if this was really useful, let me know. Otherwise, I can change more information for you in the future or something like that, right? And that was on the professor's forward-facing information for the students. So we're starting to see these things now where students are actually pushing back and saying, hey, hold on a second, my education, I don't want AI to be creating the stuff that I'm using, right? Or I don't want it to do it because the teachers are being, hypocrites if they're saying we can't use it, but they can use it, etc. And so I actually don't have this problem with my students, and I'll give you a little bit of a quick survey later on about what some of those things look like. But my big thing with my students is being very transparent, right? When you open up that conversation, and I always talk about my classroom being a lab, right, where we're out there practicing, where we're learning how to do these things. We're not meant to be the masters of them. We're meant to be the lab, the lab learners and trying to go through our learning process. And so for me, part of that is being very transparent. I do recognize that this image, for those of you who are Back to the Future fans, is actually, you know, if we take the metaphor too far, we're talking about him potentially dying and disappearing. So let's not worry about that. But here we're kind of seeing this conversation is, when are you using AI? So every time I'm using AI in the classroom, it's important to me to be very clear about that. And I say, hey, I am going to use AI on this assignment, or I am not going to use AI, or when we do this part of it, you are going to get AI feedback. And I'll explain that in a bit, but you'll get AI feedback, but that is not your final result, right? So let's understand what these parts of the things are. So we can really work through that conversation with everybody. And then when I'm being transparent and I'm saying, hey, these are the spots where I'm using it, and these are the spots where I'm not using it, then it becomes easier for students to see when can they use AI, right? So if I say on an assignment, hey, it's okay for you to use it here, let's play with it. Okay, it's not okay for you to use it here. Let's make sure that we're being, good stewards of our own education and our own learning processes. We really kind of want to make sure that we're thinking through all of those ideas, but not just for ourselves, putting it on to the students, right? Because we see these conversations around saying, hey, where's our critical thinking going? What's going to happen if we offload all of our thinking to these tools? And it's really about helping students to understand that process. Um, very quickly, just because I'm talking about transparency and this came out, just very recently. There is an article, once you get the links to all this, it just came out for the organizational behavior of human decision processes, and it's going into this idea that actually at the moment we're starting to see people finding things less trustworthy when people disclose that they're using AI. So it's actually going right against what I just said. That said, I am not totally sure how long this research will last, because the human fundamental of being transparent and being clear and honest is something I'm just not willing to give up, because the survey says, hey, people are saying that they distrust something. I also think that in the future we will start to see a world where all people are going to be kind of like blown away about the idea of not using AI. Now, I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying I think that we're going to move into a world where we say, hey, you made this totally by yourself without any AI help. Wow, right? Kind of the same way that we say today, oh, you wrote a handwritten letter and you didn't send it out by email or text message. Wow, right? Not that it's impossible, not that it's the right thing to do, but or the wrong thing to do. It's just a possible world that we might move into. Um, all right. So, not everybody loves this, and I'll be fine to understand. This is a not totally controversial, but some people don't like the AI assessment scale. If you have not seen this, though, some people really love it, right? And they're saying, hey, depending on the assignments that we're going with, let's talk about how much AI is okay to use, right? What's my thinking around this? Now, I don't think this is a solved solution, and if you follow any of these people online, Perkins, Verze, Rowe, McVa, I mean, they all talk about it and they make updates to this idea, but you want to kind of start looking at your different assignments and saying, where is it really important that we don't use any AI? Where is it really useful for students to do much heavier explorations or full-on uses? All of these possibilities are out there, right? And we're kind of doing some of this, by default as it is. And so it can be an idea that is useful to a lot of people to say, okay, on this activity, we're really going for a one, right? I really want to see what you know how to do inside of the class. No AI at all, right? As compared to this one's a little bit different. Let's play with it. Let's start collaborating, coming up with ideas, seeing what parts are useful and what parts are not. This is yeah, so if you go up AI assessment scale, you can search it. There's a website for it with lots of useful information on it as well. And I'll try to paste a link into it a little bit later when we're done here. So, a couple of actual practical ways that I'm doing this. So I just want to show you as quickly as possible. I think we'll kind of just take a look at this. So the first thing that I do, because of very early in my class, so I teach one class, it's called Academic Writing for Multilingual Learners. And the very first day of class, we want to see where everybody is, what they're writing, how they're doing. And so because we're in this world now, part of what I do is right off the bat, they've written something on their first day of class. They've kind of showed me what their writing skills are. And I'm going to go into that and immediately, and again, speaking very clearly to them about what I'm doing, right? Saying, hey, I'm going to give you some AI feedback on this right away. The quicker that you can do this, the better, because you don't want to really waste time on it. You want to get right into it. But I'll show you an example. So I'm going to use Brisk right now as a kind of example. If you don't like Brisk, or if you've got, another tool that you want to use, that's totally fine. It's just meant to kind of be the idea here. So if you haven't seen Brisk, basically you can go into your Google Docs, you can have it do all sorts of little different things with it. It can be pretty cool. So if you click on this give feedback, you have different types of feedback that you might give. So I can click on glow and grow. This is a very, very kind of basic prompt just to get started here. You can see it's just give actionable feedback, right? It's not really saying very much. I might, in the future make more adjustments and get specific with it, but I'm going to click on that brisket thing. Okay. And it'll build up answers for you right here of whatever it's trying to say. So this is the glow and grow option. So hey, areas where you can glow, areas where you can grow, etc. And then when you're in the document, you can just click the button and it will insert that feedback for the students. Now, what I'm really hoping for is imperfect answers, right? Now, my students are fairly advanced and they have a decent understanding of their own skill sets at some levels. And so I want them to hopefully find problems inside of this feedback, right? Hey, it's saying that I should do this when actually I've learned in my other class that this is the right way. What's going on here? Because what I want it to do is for them to take this as gold, but for it to be a Kickstarter for them to think about what's going on with their writing with an understanding that they can absolutely push back on these things. Because what I really want my students doing is pushing back on the AI every time they have the chance, right? And they say, hey, hold on a second, because I want them to build a culture for themselves of not trusting AI by default. I do love all this stuff, right? Oh, yeah, sorry, Jane. Yes, that Glow and Grow version is available in the free account. There's a couple of different ones that switch in and out. But yes, so you can kind of do something like this and get them started with it, and then ask them directly to start challenging it, right? What are you seeing that's right? What are you seeing that's wrong? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And again, it's opening from the first day of class, those conversations around what do they actually think about it, and not just blindly trusting it and thinking that it's going to be okay. All right, so then we move into some of these low stakes activities, right? Now, what I like to do is get my students going. I'll give you, actually, let me get you the link to this directly. Here, I'm gonna drop this in the chat. If you want to play with it, you can. So I built this activity with Otani. So, Otani down here in Southern California. Sorry if you're not any Dodgers fan. I know some of you up there and some of you Giants fans up there are going to be. You can change your characters if you like. But here we go. So with something like this, a low stakes activity. So I built out this prompt where basically the idea is students are going to go through this activity, this game in an interactive storytelling format, and they'll kind of, if they're using the past tense correctly, they'll get points and kind of move forward in the game, and the story will continue to unravel itself. And if they get it wrong, then they don't get the points, right? And they keep on playing, trying to get these past tense ones right. Now, you can go in there and you can play it. The link is in there, so you can try it out for yourself. But for me, the big thing with this is one, I'm getting students to play with it a little bit, get their ideas going, figure out where their language is, and it's a little bit more fun and then very, very low stakes. So it's not a high assessment type of thing. If they say, hey, hold on a second, I did this thing right, but it said I was wrong. Well, they're not going to lose, points in class because of that. They'll get like some sort of participation activity for it, etc. But then we're looking at kind of having a really fun way for them to explore with it and see what feedback they're getting out of it. And again, all with this kind of background idea that they are encouraged to critique the quality of the output and talk to me about that and talk to their classmates and say, hey, this thing's going right or this thing is going wrong. So once they start playing with these things, I have a couple of other versions. Uh, so this is in Playlab. So this one right here is built in Playlab, which is playlab.ai. Let me put that in there, playlab.ai. Oh, sorry, .ai. And sorry, my link disappeared. Kat, if you can get that for me later, that'd be great. Thank you. This is Playlab, which is great because it is FERPA compliant, right? They are actually super student friendly. They are really kind of trying to work on helping teachers, helping students understand everything. Not so much with something like ChatGPT, but this one, Playlab, is really, it's one of the ones that I find that I've trusted the most in terms of what they're doing on the back end, how they're trying to help out students and teachers. Really interesting and useful tool where basically you kind of build the prompts on the back end and then the students can go in and interact with it. Judy, yes, it does work for middle school. Okay, so moving forward then, I also like to build in with this opportunities for failure, right? Where they're gonna say, hey, what's gonna go on here? Am I doing this right? And again, saying it the other way around, are those things showing up wrong? Now, if you do not have a paid account, this particular link won't work for you, but I'll just show you what the idea is anyways, which is this is like an idea where it's a practicing the order of adjectives. So for language learners, right, they might kind of make mistakes around order of adjectives. They might say something is a green, beautiful car instead of a beautiful green car, right? And so this is kind of the idea, and we do this in different levels of language learning. So we can kind of get started with this. And the way that I built this out was they are trying to describe different types of mystical creatures in here. And if they get it right, it is meant to build an image for them of a colorful version of the creature they described. If they get it wrong, it's going to give them a quote unquote wanted poster in black and white, right? So if they're going to describe a dragon, they might say something like a uh, let's see, friendly orange dragon. And now the only problem with showing this to you right now is that uh, ChatGPT with their image generation has gotten a lot slower since some of the newer models have come out. So I don't want to sit here and make you watch the entire development of this image generation. It used to be very fast and now it's much, much slower. But still, you can get a little sense of what's going on inside of here. It says you wrote a friendly orange dragon. Let's check the order. That's correct. You did your opinion first and then color. So the encouragement of them to get it right is that they're at the end of the day, they're going to end up getting a full color developed picture of whatever this thing is. Again, the speed of it has really slowed me down a little bit from using this one actively because I liked for them to be able to go, okay, got it right. Let me move on to the next one. But they can still have some fun with it on their own times. And again, if they get it wrong, I've still set it up where they're not losing anything. They're still going to get an image. They just won't get the full color image for it. So they can kind of have a lot of fun with these. But here we go. This is kind of turning into a friendly orange dragon, and later on, if you have the ChatGPT paid account, you can see what the possibilities here are. If obviously maybe many of your students might not have that, and so you can do things like setting up your computer at the front of the room, or they could do a race and play the game and try and do something, but your flexibility might vary inside of here. Okay. Very quickly here to wrap things up, for me is, what do students think about doing all of these things, right? So once you start introducing it to your students, what are their responses to it? And I'll show you, this is highly informal. So just so you know, this is just a very loose survey I took with my students in my class. You can see there's only 16 responses inside of there. So it's not, I wouldn't take it, as like this is the golden answer to anything. It's just something to kind of understand around here. But how useful was AI? So, they're leaning towards 5 was very useful, 0 is not useful at all. So you can see it kind of grows. It's kind of steady across the middle and the top instead of lower at the bottom. Is the speed of AI feedback important to you? So they like the fast turnaround, 56%. 25% I would prefer to wait to get it later if I knew it only came from my professor, which kind of, again, this is my classes, but I've talked to other students or other people as well, and I started kind of get that loose vibe around the timings for it. Did the AI feedback help you have better conversations with professors in the ELC? The ELC is our language lab on our campus. And so students said 50% yes, 37% not sure, 12% no, right? So, okay, so it's working for some, it's not working for others. And I'm kind of glad that these are not like overwhelmingly totally positive, right? Because then I'd be like, oh, they're not paying attention, they're just clicking things, right? And so you definitely saw the differences in personalities. But even here, right? Have you found AI bots in class a good way to practice skills? Yes, 50%, no, sometimes, right? Or sorry, sometimes on 50%, and no no's at all, right? So I was like, okay, that's kind of good, right? And then again, some other things. Would you like to have more for homework or for class? Most of them said yes, a little bit, right? At some level. So, regardless of what you're doing here, it's this opening up the conversation for language learners, and really having them be involved in their parts of their learning and saying, hey, you tell me what's going on with you and how you approach these things and how you understand them. They really appreciate that because they feel like they're getting the autonomy. And this will be true for any student, not just language learners, but they're saying, hey, hold on a second. This is coming back into my hands, right? It's not just teacher says this and therefore this is the end. Right now, it's about opening up that conversation around their learning. And so I hope these approaches are useful frameworks. I don't know if every single one is perfect, right? But they're guides towards getting towards what we're looking for. So if you're interested, as Kat mentioned, I have a book coming out later this month that helps people use technology stuff for language learning classrooms. If you're interested, you can get more information later. But I am going to hand off the torch to Zara. So thank you all so much. Appreciate your time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks for the shakes, and appreciate everybody.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your. I love that you are inviting students to not only see how you use AI, so to build that trust with that transparency, but also asking them to critique it, and then to have them utilize it to empower their own learning, like to have that self-efficacy, right? That's huge. So I really appreciate that. Yes, Judy says your approach really honors student voice, which is fantastic. So, yeah, you're getting lots of thank yous in the chat, which I can understand. So, thank you for that. I am excited to check out that book once it is released. I am an avid reader, so that will be on my list. So, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And yeah, I saw you unmuted. Was there something else you wanted to add, Brent?
No, I'm sorry. I was just being ready to talk if I needed
Oh, you know what?
to.
Actually, I did notice in the chat someone asked if you were using an extension on your form. I don't. I'm wondering, it looked like maybe it was Moat. Is that a new version of Moat
Yeah,
or?
that was not related to what I
Okay.
was doing for this assignment. That just happens to be installed on the browser.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. But Moat is a great tool, by the way, for those of you that are not aware. So definitely MOTE. If you're not aware, it's one to check out. So thank you for that. Definitely appreciate. We bring in practitioners, those who are doing this work. Because you don't want to hear from me all the time. You want to hear different voices of those that are engaged in this, and they are those that join us are volunteering their time to share with you. They are truly passionate about this. And so we really do thank you for that. So our next speaker is Zara Razi, and she is a computer science, math, and CTE educator at the middle school level, and also an adjunct professor of practice in computer science for Reach University. And so I love that you have the opportunity to hear varied levels. You heard Brent talking about that higher ed view with multilingual learners, and now we're going to have an opportunity to hear about that middle school, particularly in math and computer science, though I am certain that a lot of the strategies and ideas that Zara will share will work with other content areas as well. So, Zara, go ahead and take it away. And thank you so much for being with us.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Kat. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Zara, and I do teach computer science and math. And what I'm going to do today is that I am going to share with you how I teach with and about AI in order to support all my students, specifically multilingual learners. And before we dive in and see what examples I have brought for you from my classroom, I would like for us to complete a quick activity together. So you are going to see a sentence on your screen. If you can speak this sentence, restate it in a language other than English, please raise your virtual hand. So let's see how many hands we get. Awesome. Wow. So many hands. Okay. Scott, can you please unmute and say it in your language of preference and let us know what language it is?
Did you call on me?
Yes, Scott,
Sorry.
yes.
I'm in 2 meetings at once right now. Hi, everyone. My name is Scott, and I'm happy to be a member of this learning community.
Can you say it in a language other than English? Oh, okay. So I have Judy. Judy, go ahead. Thank you, Scott.
I speak in French. Je suis Judy Blakeney et je suis heureuse d'être un membre de cette communauté de apprendre.
Lovely. Thank you, Jane.
Hallo miteinander, ich heiße Jane und ich bin froh, eine Mitteiler von dieser lernenden Gemeinde zu sein.
Awesome. And the language was?
Oh, German.
German. Yes, I thought it was German. Thank you, Anna.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Ana y estoy feliz de ser un miembro de esta comunidad educativa.
Lovely. Spanish, right?
Yes.
Yes. Carmen?
That was me. Same as Ana, en español. Hola a todo el mundo, mi nombre es Carmen Rivera y estoy contenta de ser miembro de esta comunidad educativa.
Lovely, lovely. And I'm gonna go last. سلام، اسم من زهرا هستش و من خوشحالم که عضوی از این محیط آموزشی هستم. Okay, lovely. So this is the very first activity I complete actually with my students.
Zara, what language was that?
This is Farsi, Persian. Sorry,
that was my guess.
So this is the very first activity I complete with my students. And that sets the tone for a welcoming, multilingual, and inclusive classroom. And besides this, throughout the year, I do some other activities to kind of keep the vibe going and keep encouraging that. Like students are encouraged to count up to 10 in a language other than their native language, or let's say English in general, and they receive extra credit at the end of the semester. And this is both for them, and if a peer helped them to speak that language or learn counting in that language, that person will also receive credit. So this is the main idea here. But how I actually integrate AI in my instruction, both to teach my students about it and also teach with it as a tool. The big picture, this is the big idea that shows how I actually use AI in order to improve my instructional practices. Um, since the rise of generative AI, I have been using LLMs back then, and now they are multimodal chatbots mostly, to turn my ideas into instructional materials. And with visuals acting as a universal language, it has enabled me to incorporate a lot of that in my instruction. Also, I always take a learning by creation approach across curriculum, whether it's math or computer science. And using AI has enabled me to be able to create a lot more assignments and really get creative with that approach. I also bring it in to help my students learn about AI, and you will see some examples of it. Another way that I use this to support my multilingual learners is by creating tutor chatbots, which can kind of students can use translanguaging as they are communicating with them. I'll show some examples of that to you as well. So the idea is to support the students, my multilingual students, in their learning journey, where they get to work in a low stress learning environment. And I am really trying to leverage AI to support that goal. And let's take a look at some examples here. Okay. So this is where I usually start. Every year at the beginning of the year, I create a class profile. And in this class profile, I include information about my students, not name or last name. As you see, the student identification here is a number, which I am the only one who knows who this number represents. But I do bring in any data that I have, and specifically the consideration column that you see here, I have language information, foster youth information, or any specific information that I need to know about that student. And instead of just going to, let's say, ChatGPT, write a prompt and just describe my classroom, I use this as a feeder to ChatGPT to create my instructional materials. And I have provided a sample prompt for you here. This is a sample prompt that I use, and I always try to take a UDL approach, which I have learned is a great approach to use to support my multilingual learners. Something that I really like to point out here, which I found interesting, is that when I use the term multilingual learners in my prompts, I am not getting as much resources as if I use English learners. And the reason is that since, let's say, a chatbot like ChatGPT goes and searches the web, it sees a lot of content with that vocabulary, because we used to call them English learners. Then we made the transition to multilingual learners. So I make sure that I do include that English learner just as a key term as well, so that way I can get access to more resources. So this is something I found interesting. I thought I shared with you. Okay, now, how do I teach about AI? Well, you are seeing two examples here. I may not be able to run both of them because we were testing and learned that when I run these programs, since it takes over my mic, you guys, it interferes with the quality of Zoom sound here, so we will not be able to get the result that we want, but I'll try to see if I can run the first one. So what are these two examples? Instead of giving a paper and pencil to my students in my math classroom, or let's say creating a digital quiz for them, I tell them this. For example, this first activity was a practice opportunity for my students where they were learning about different categories of real numbers. And this is specifically when we were learning about rational, irrational numbers. So instead of giving my students let's say a table with different numbers and having them check mark, is it rational, irrational? I told them, you come up with your set of numbers. You should be able to identify which one is in which category. And then you are building an artifact and you bring in a language component into it. So this is this is a Spanish version of it actually, but we did have an Arabic version, and I believe that we had another version as well. I don't remember what the other language was. So I'm going to run the project and let's see if it works for us as far as you hearing how it pronounces the answers. So students created an artifact. This is a practice which is actually it is providing an opportunity for students to learn through gamification. Okay, when I run this program, wherever the arrow is, it's going to say what kind of number is in that category. So can we hear here or no? Yes or no? We cannot. Yeah, that's unfortunately my Zoom setting here, because we tested it and then we had an echo. But when I move the arrow, it says it in English, but it actually shows it in English, but it says it in Spanish. As you see here, it translated to Spanish. And I also use this for my computer science class, where we learned about artificial neural networks and their applications. And we talked about instant translation. This was a great learning opportunity for them to build a product, an artifact that actually brings that learning into life. And let's see if this one will work for us. I would like to show it to you. Oh, you know what? I actually had to close it earlier when we were testing, but I'll explain over it for you. So this is actually an assessment. So this one is an assessment where students were assessed on solving equations. Instead of giving them an equation to solve, I told them, come up with an equation, solve it yourself, and then create an assessment for another classmate where they can speak the number of solutions to this equation in a language of choice. And the program can tell them if they got it right or wrong. So not only they are practicing their learning themselves, they are also creating a product for their classmates here. This one is trained in English, so we used Google Teachable Machine to train this model, and then we imported it into MIT Raise. I have provided a link to all the resources that I have used in this slide, so you will have access to it. Then we imported into MIT Raise, and they created this program. So these are examples to learn about AI, and both from computer science and math classes. Something else that I have been using and I absolutely love are the chatbot tutors we have created. And these tutors, I'll show you one example here. And I'm going to show you how students can do translanguaging, which is, they love it. They love it. I observe them sometimes and I see that even though they are like fluent in, let's say, Spanish and English, but just the idea of being able to do that is just so fascinating to them. As you see here, my prompt was to ask, like I played the role of a student. I asked for the chatbot to explain to me how to add integers. And then it provided an example. I have trained this chatbot to take an inquiry-based approach and to not just give an answer. It provides examples and it takes the students through a questioning process. And I have learned this has been very effective with language acquisition for my multilingual learners because they are practicing language skills. At the same time, they are becoming aware of their learning journey here. They are asking questions, clarifying, and I have seen them like asking the chatbot to change the tone in a way for them to understand it. So they have learned how to communicate with it. And halfway through it, I switched to Farsi. As you see, I switched to Farsi. And then I forgot to say, okay, now that I'm asking you in Farsi, respond back to me in Farsi. So I forgot that part. But then after it explained it again, I told them, can you explain it in Farsi to me now? So this has been a great and powerful tool in our classroom. I have created a couple of chatbots for different purposes, and I have really seen great results with them. My district uses paper education, which uses live tutors. In the recent survey that I had in my classroom, I had my students complete a survey, and a lot of them were telling me they prefer the chatbot because, and even though this is a limited chatbot, but they said they prefer it because they do not get intimidated, that they do not feel like they are being judged, or they can take their time. They can just ask the chatbot to change its tone, to simplify it. Especially my multilingual learners, they mentioned that the fact that they can translanguage here is very powerful and effective for them. And then I also have another example. I trained this chatbot on my syllabus for my parents. And what it does, parents can ask questions about the syllabus, about how I run my classroom in a language of their choice. And it is going to respond to them. So even though I trained it in English, but it is able to find the information and translate it. And I'm using School AI to create all of these tools. I have also tried PlayLab as well, but that is blocked by my district. So I just stuck with, decided to stay with School AI. So you see, I am asking a question about homework. Is homework given weekly or daily? And it is responding to me. So this is how I use teaching and learning about AI to support my multilingual learners. There are so many other examples. I have included some examples. These are recorded videos of students presenting some of these integrated projects. You can check them out if you would like to. I have included the chatbots if you want to experiment with it. I also included it in, let's see, in this slide over here. And something else that I have really liked using as well is Flexi. That one also has, that one is from CK12 and it can translate between the languages. Okay, these are some of the resources that I have been using for these projects. I thought maybe you can have it if you want to kind of implement it in your own classroom. A lot of these activities are transferable to other content areas. And hopefully you will be using some of them, or if you would like to implement some of them in your classroom, just reach out to me. I am more than happy to support you or provide more resources on this. Thank you so much. I wanted to make sure I say within 20 minutes. There's a lot to share, but hopefully I was able to share just enough to get you curious and excited about all these opportunities.
Thank you so much, Zara. I appreciate how you're validating and honoring students' primary language and creating that space where they feel safe in moving forward. And I love also the idea of, I'd heard from others as well that particularly for multilingual learners, that speaking with a chatbot can kind of lower that effective filter and help them to feel more comfortable asking questions. So yeah, thanks for sharing that as well.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. So if there are, thank you so much again to both of our speakers, to Brent, to Zara. We so appreciate you. If there are any questions that anyone would like to ask in the chat, or any notices or wonderings for our speakers, or for the good of the group, feel free to do so. We're getting lots.
Kat, I am reading the chat right now.
Yes.
Question, Judy. Yes, it is actually available for middle school students, and it is safe to use, I would say.
Yeah, and I will say, when we first started doing these webinars, when the guidance first came out in 2023, there were not FERPA COPA compliant options for student use, right? So it's exciting. It is still very important to make sure that we are using platforms that are safe and that are aligned to the FERPA and COPA, not only aligned to those requirements, but some districts, your district may have specific guidelines as well. And so you want to follow those board policies as well. Mark, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, it's important to remember along those lines that even though these vendors are FERPA and COPA compliant, all that does is take the legal onus off you. It doesn't necessarily mean they are actually safe, because almost all of them are using other engines underneath, like Magic Schools, for example, uses like 3 or 4 different engines, and you don't know which ones you're using at any particular point, because they actually change them up as they're going. So it's just important to be aware of the mechanism that you're dealing with.
Yes,
be
and
informed.
also train students to be very careful when they put in information there. That is very important.
It's just another part of being cyber secure.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Mark. And I think they're similar to, when as an educator, we were nervous and sometimes told not to be careful when students were using Google searches, right? Like because there is always potential to find things on technology that we didn't want students to see. So again, that's why we really want our students to be aware of those safety concerns, and to really empower them to make those decisions as well. So love that. And thank you for those of you that are letting us know what topics in the future are of interest to you. So creating more support for the parents, that is excellent. I did see also in the chat, when is the next webinar? So you may have noticed we have had 2 to even, 1 month we had 5 webinars in a month, but typically it's around 2. We are taking a break until likely August. So just if you are not already following the CDE social media channels, I would encourage you to do so, because they will be advertised or promoted, so to speak, on there. And Carmen, how did I miss all those webinars? I know, don't worry, they're all recorded and on our AI website. What I'm needing to do now is figure out a better way to organize them, because there are so many, which is a great thing. So, but I appreciate the feedback. So if any of you, again, we want to make sure that these topics are of interest to you. So absolutely. Yes, the AI website would be a great place to go for summer learning. I agree, Judy. And Judy actually was one of our speakers as well. So thank you for sharing last month about multilingual learners. So we appreciate that. All right. Well, wanted to let you know our next steps to support you. As always, all registrants will be sent an email with links to the CDE AI resources, a link to this presentation, which does have links to the presentations or contact information for our speakers. And there will also be an opportunity to fill out a survey to support our statewide AI work group, which will be beginning beginning soon. If you did apply for that AI work group, don't worry, you didn't miss anything. The notices have not yet been sent out. We received nearly 600 applications, which is exciting. And so keep an eye out on your email for a notice, regardless of whether you were, Edgar was getting nervous. Yes. So the applications are closed, Carmen. However, there will be opportunities to provide public comment. Those work group meetings are, this was through Senate Bill 1288. And so the work group meetings will be public. They will be made, the information will be made public and the agendas will be made public prior to that. And then, of course, there will be the survey that you can share, because the legislation, and we also believe it's important, it calls for making sure that we know what's happening in school systems. What are your concerns? What are those things that you are excited about and that are working for you? And of course, the recording link will be sent via email as well. So I do want to thank you for all that you do. Thank you for all of your input. We appreciate you. Many of you may be concluding the school year, so congratulations on another great year, and have a fantastic, fantastic summer. Thanks so much, everyone.